And Maureen Sutton, who will explain the shocking truths about healthcare, prescription drugs, food and supplement industries. They will help guide you to take back your power and feel great again. Now, here's Dr. Sunil Pai and Maureen Sutton.
Welcome, everybody, today. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Dr. Sunil Pai, and
I'm Maureen Sutton.
And today we have a unique guest and a great topic. But before we get into that, we want to announce again that we will have a food as medicine retreat coming soon. So mark your calendars. If you go to sanjevani.net, www.sanjevani, spelled SANJEVANI.net. You can join us in the wonderful island of Curacao, August 5th through 11th at a 4-diamond resort, all-inclusive, all plant-based, all organic foods. Maureen, I, and Robert Scott Bell will be giving lectures, hands-on demonstrations, and also a lot of fun activities, the beach, the water, the local traditions.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Touring a local herb garden with natural indigenous herbs. And on that note, in my book, An Inflammation Nation, which hopefully most of you have read, if not, go to www.inflammationnation.com. You can get a signed copy, or you can go to Amazon or Kindle. Out of the 10 steps that we talk about in our daily practices of how to reduce inflammation, how to improve your healing response naturally, number 10 is actually love, happiness, social community circles, and faith and spiritual practices. And so today we're going to focus on that. And this is just as important as step 1, step 2, step 3, all the other steps in my book, is looking at how do we get to the base core of our natural ability to heal. And this is through using indigenous healing methods and spiritual practices. So today we have a wonderful guest, and it's an honor and a privilege because she has been a person in our lives and has changed our community in a wonderful, positive way. Maureen, if you'd like to give an introduction to CC.
Okay, I'd love to. Maestra CC, Cuauhtli Cihuatl, MSW, Ph.D, is a curandera, spiritual healer, community advocate, and health promotora. In New Mexico for over 35 years, an empath, intuitive, and traditional healer. She uses clinical social work methods, gonna cry, and evidence-based practices, including indigenous ceremonies, pláticas, which are heart-to-heart talks, temezcales, sweat lodges, prayer, meditation, herbal consultations, soul retrievals, PTSD ceremonies, transition and crossover ceremonies, blessings for the land and home, and energy work for the immigrant community, incarcerated Native American youth, veterans, young mothers, hospice patients, and those in addiction recovery. As an Army veteran herself, much of her work focuses on susto, PTSD, in returning veterans. Cross-cultural spiritual practices is her expertise. She is initiated into the Mexica, Aztec, Lipan, Apache, Lakota, and Peruvian traditions as a medicine woman.
Welcome,
Wow.
CC. Thank you for joining us today.
Wow is right.
Thank you for that introduction. I really read well.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you became a spiritual healer, spiritual teacher?
Well, thank you for the opportunity for today. My name is Cuauhtli Cihuatl. I go by CC, which is easier. Cuauhtli Cihuatl means Eagle Woman in the Mexica tradition. I grew up around this culture since I was very little. I was trained by my grandmother in Tampico, Mexico, who was the curandera of that town. And I will travel back and forth between Tampico, Mexico, and Brownsville, Texas. Just crossing the border was just something so natural for me. Every day was about ceremony with her. Every day was learning about the herbs. Every day was learning about connection to Creator and Mother Earth. And just learning all the elements and learning how to guide people and support people when they will come to see her regarding issues. Anything from mal de ojo, which is called the evil eye, empacho, blockage around the intestines, or susto. That was her specialty. And it was everything that I knew. That was all I knew. In between, trying to be a teenager and go to school. But I knew I was different. I knew that this was my calling. So I've been doing it as long as I can remember.
So, how were you initiated as a medicine woman by the Aztec, Apache, Lakota, and Peruvian traditions? They're all different. So,
They're all different. I've been blessed through my path of having elders and being adopted into several of these cultural circles. The Mexica tradition, obviously, was my grandmother's path. And so I was given my name at an early age. I was 9 years old as Cuauhtli Cihuatl, and just connected to the eagle. That was my totem animal. And as I evolved in my tradition and as I evolved in my path, I was invited into other circles, into other cultures and spiritual ways. The Lakota way was in Pine Ridge. I have a brother who's a Sundance chief, and I was adopted into that culture also, even though I don't have Lakota lineage. And I was seen of my gifts and my spiritual ways, and I was honored through a ceremony and proclaimed a medicine woman in that path. And the same with the Lipan Apache, which is my father's culture, and the Peruvian I was also adopted into and with a family and seen as a medicine woman, which is like I carry a lot and I integrate a lot of it. It's not an easy task. Not everybody can just say, oh, I want to do this. It's something that you're honored with. The people see you, the elders see you, they see how you walk your path, they see you how you are in your community. And I was bestowed those gifts.
How amazing is that, right?
yeah,
And the
it's
idea is
powerful.
that's actually true integrative medicine at the local, the rawest form of indigenous healing. And I like the idea that, when you have different traditions, it's like the blending of the best of every world. Can you
Exactly.
give us some examples of with these indigenous healing practices? Is there certain ones that have certain benefits with certain mind-body connections or diseases or imbalances that you find like, oh yeah, for depression we use this, or for diabetes we use that, or for insomnia, etc.? How do you, like, integrative perspective, we use Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, etc., right? Conventional
Hmm.
naturopathy. And how would you use those traditions, or what do you find that you can explain to the listeners that they might be able to relate to using those methods?
Well, that's a great question. So, for instance, this past week, some of my Kalpuli members, I'm the founder and elder of a tribe called Kalpuli Cihuatl, which is a Mexica community of spiritual people. We gave limpias cleansings in Santa Fe. We were blessed by having 32 people that we were able to serve within the community of Santa Fe. And so we had an older gentleman from, I believe, from Española in his late 90s, and the son that was bringing him to see us for a cleansing really wanted us to find a way how to heal his dad. And the only thing that I could offer him was just a loving touch, because this man was ready to transition. This man was ready to just, he was tired. And so more of the so-called healing was for the son to accept that his father was ready to transition. So we offered a little bit of body work on the father, to kind of be less stressed and release some of holding on to the earth spirit that he has. And the other one was offering his son comfort and strength to accept that his father was ready to transition. And so what I do when I work and I'm in my sun stretch to people is I scan people with my hands. My hands is able to tell me what I need to do. I'm able to have a co-creation of healing, I call it, like a triangle between creator, myself, and the person that I see. And so I receive from creator, and then my hands kind of guide me what I need to do. So for this young man, it was telling me that his heart was grieving, of letting go of his dad. So the first thing that came to me was an herb that we call te de tila. Te de tila, and it's hibiscus. And for us in our tradition, it offers comfort for the heart. It's all about the heart. If you look at the hibiscus flower, it has a little shape like a heart. And so I grew up learning from my grandmother that this tea would help with heart issues, grieving issues. And so we gave him some tea and we told him how to take it at home in order to release some of the grief. So that was one of the persons that we saw. So we offered the hibiscus tea and we did a little bit of body work on the dad.
And that's a wonderful story, because I just want to just interject real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, since we're talking about evidence-based being integrative, there is actually clinical studies with hibiscus tea for cardiovascular function.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these traditions now are being re-examined, as we
Right.
say in the modern age, in the Western, 2018, looking at, what is this that, people have been using. So I just wanted to just interject there real quickly, because this is important, because a lot of people might be listening saying, oh, hibiscus tea. I'm like, no, there's clinical studies now showing that. Right. So there's a wisdom that we cannot ignore, that's been around for centuries and millennia. And I just like to respect that.
Well, I appreciate that you said that. A lot of people tell me, well, how do you know this? How do you know this not, about the science base? I don't.
Right.
What I know is that I grew up with it. I saw how it works. I know the connection with the herbs. I know the connection with the stones and the trees and stuff. Now, as I have evolved academically in this path, I can see how it's connected scientifically in the evidence base, and I'm able to do some research around that. So I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of us healers, the old ways, the curanderas, the medicine people, however you want to call us, however we're labeled, we don't know how it works. We just know that it works.
That it does work.
Yeah. So the cleansing that we gave this older gentleman, the father of this young man, it was just using our hands. And so, that's Reiki, right? But we just knew that it was just touching with our hands around him. I didn't know that it was called Reiki until maybe 20 years ago, and I've been doing it all my life. I didn't know the connection about the cardiovascular and the hibiscus until just recently, about 5 years ago. I just know that I offer it when someone has a grieving issue around their heart. So that I'm glad that you brought that up.
There's a part of healing which is intuition.
Intuition.
Right? There's a science, but there's also an art to practicing healing methods or medicine, or whatever you want to call it.
Intuition and experiential. After you've seen it work so many times, you know what works for what.
Right. I have a master's in social work, so a lot of the work that I've done, I've seen how it connects into the theories, and with the dialectic behavioral therapy or other kind of social theories. A lot of the work that I do is meditation, honoring your body, like how you say mind, body, and spirit. But I always say spirit, the heart, then the mind, then the body. Because if we're not balanced spiritually, then it affects all the other, body energies that we have. So, that there's a connection with all that, and especially how you said the intuition. We all have that intuition, but we forget that we have it, in the community, in the Hispano Latino community, I'm called Maestra, which is a big honor for me. That means teacher. But I'm not really teaching anyone this medicine. I'm just reminding them that they already have it in them. All cultures have it. All cultures have traditions, and we all just need to remember that connection, just guiding and supporting and reminding them. Somewhere, somebody had a little abuelita, a grandmother, or a tia, an aunt, who was using an herb or was using a touch, some type of a touch or a rubbing of their feet. Somebody had a mustard plastered, on their chest, for respiratory issues. We all have it. It's in all cultures. It's coming all from one source,
Right.
Whatever we call it, creator, God, Buddha, whatever it is, it's all coming from one source.
Wonderful. So after this next commercial break from our sponsors, which I definitely want you to listen to our sponsors, because they're the ones who allow us to have this kind of show, we'll be talking a little bit more and getting into depth of learning a little bit more about these indigenous healing practices. We'll be right back after this short break.
Great.
Clear.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We're here on Facebook Live.
Hola.
Okay. We're here with wonderful CC here, a wonderful curandera friend, teacher. Her list of her resume is bigger than mine, which is great. We're talking about wonderful healing practices, and there is going to be certain things happening here, right? At Sanjevani?
Oh yes, we're having a workshop. Maybe you can.
That's right. Thank you for
we'll
reminding
say it
me.
Now, and we'll say it on the air, but we'll say it right now for all the people at Facebook Live so they can hear it.
So to all those who are on Facebook right now, I extend an invitation. We're having a workshop around the summer solstice in June 21st to the 24th. We're going to be walking the Mexica medicine wheel around the south direction, our sacred south direction, which has a lot to do with our inner child and the fire within. And so it's going to be a few days filled with a lot of activities, bonding, exercises, and learning some of the traditions that I grew up with. So you can take it home and use those within your community and just share them as best as you can and make the medicine for you. So that will be June 21st to the 24th. You can go to my Facebook page or here on the Sanjevani page. We'll have information and a link on how to register.
Yeah, and I'd recommend anybody who's in town or anybody who wants to come to see beautiful Albuquerque at that time. This would be a great option to come and visit our clinic, come do a wonderful, I don't know what you want to call it, a retreat activity.
It's a retreat.
A retreat,
Yeah,
you know,
retreat
hang out with some really, really cool people. I mean, I again, this is, I'm an integrative physician, and I think these things are amazingly cool. They have wonderful experiences. We see people have great transformations. Just, you know, you don't have to know all about it. It's about the experience of just participating and being there, you know, and most people go around all their life not having any kind of experience. I think they've lost touch with, you know, many people's cultures, since we're all kind of now in America. We've lost our local culture. So this is something that, you know, if you feel like, hey, you need to have some community, and you know, part of my book, again, step number 10 is talking about faith and spiritual practices. This is one way to actually experience that yourself. So definitely come in June.
very loving, open community. So you don't need to feel shy or held back in any way. Come and express yourself and enjoy it. It's something wonderful.
So the connections we've made through retreats in this beautiful space that you have, I mean, have been like lifelong relationships. You know, we get really connected.
Okay, so we're going to be starting here. Thank you, everybody, for Facebook Live. Please share this and go back and listen to the archives as well.
You are tuned in to Take Back Your Health. To reach our program today, call 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or by email to radio@sanjevani.net. That's radio@sanjevani.net. Now, let's return to Take Back Your Health.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you all for listening. Today we're talking with CC, an amazing spiritual healer, curandera, a medicine woman who's been inducted in many, many different traditional healing practices. I want to get to something that's really unique, because a lot of people think that spiritual people are spiritual, like you're in Tibet or you're on a mountaintop. But actually, I want to get people to understand that all walks of life of people all have these purposes, and it's not just for healing, but it's also for serving. And I want to really emphasize that you served, as you know, you're a veteran. And so a lot of people kind of mistake these kind of concepts, because they think like, oh, you're a woman, or oh, you're a spiritual healer. But no, you served in the Army. Can you tell us a little bit about how your medicine practices, your cultural background shaped, you know, how you served in the Army, and also how the Army might have influenced you, and then maybe how you do it the opposite ways?
Wow, that's a big mouthful question. So I joined the military when I was 17 and a half through the delay entry program. I was living in Texas in, you know, what it was a Mexican barrio. My grandmother had just passed away, and I felt very lost, because ceremonies and rituals have a discipline. And I was lacking that discipline. So I got a little wild in my late teens in high school, and I ended up speaking to a recruiter, and the more he talked about that, I could see the connection of how the discipline will help me and assist me in my future. So I joined the Army. So this little Mexican Indian ended up going to Fort Leonard Wood to basic training, and then most of my time was at Mannheim, Germany, where I served and left the military as a drill sergeant.
Drill sergeant.
Yeah, I was a drill sergeant. If you cannot tell by my voice, I was a drill sergeant, and most of my students know I can be the drill sergeant curandera, you know.
Which is excellent. It keeps everyone in line and keeps us all focused on what we're doing.
Yes, when I do a conference, I don't need a mic, so I can really speak out.
But I think it's important because everybody that does have a spiritual teacher, I mean, what they need is discipline, right? Whether it's a spiritual practice or even like an athlete, they have a coach, right? So that person still sometimes they have to draw the line, they have to put their foot down because that's what's part of the training. It's part of the teaching from preventing us from getting off the path and staying on the path.
Well, because the energies too can scatter very easily.
Well, one of the things I tell the people that come to see me, either as a student or a client or somebody seeking something, whether it's a veteran or a community member, is that I am not a foo-foo curandera healer. You know, we're going to get to work. You're going to do your homework. I'm going to be in your face, because I don't want people to be dependent of coming to me and saying, oh, Maestra CC heal me. No. You're going to do the work. You're going to do your own healing. You're going to know how to do it. And you're going to take it back into your community, into your family, and teach that, you know, because I do not want codependency and saying, oh, wow, you know, Maestra CC is my spiritual healer. No, I don't heal anybody. This comes through Creator, and you do the work, and period, you know. And so my military experience really has come out full bloom in my spiritual practice. As I worked, you know, after I left the military, and I have 6 children. And so my 6 boys know my military voice very well. But as I walked my path in the Western medicine, finding my jobs and my employment, I was very blessed that this training with the military helped me to stay focused. I have 2 bachelor's degrees. I have 2 masters. I did go to law school. I don't practice. And then I just recently received my Ph.D. in public health from UT Austin.
Congratulations.
So not an overachiever by any means.
No
Okay?
overachiever.
This is why she's here with us, because we like to hang around really smart people. It makes us look really good, by the way. So no, I really appreciate it, because people need to understand that. A lot of times they think, you know, spiritual practice or faith and indigenous practice is a little bit of foo-foo, she. It's a little bit light. But you know, we're very serious people. We do a lot of things that we all have serious life experiences, good and bad. But that's what shapes us as being good practitioners. You know?
I think our experiences, exactly how you say, your experiences, good and bad, shape us, and we're able to give back. You know, we're able to have those heart-to-heart conversations with someone and have that empathy, you know, and know what they're going through. I was able to work at the University of New Mexico for many years as a case manager and a social worker. And I was able to have the permission of integrating my medicine into a lot of those clients that I saw. And then from there, I was recruited through the state. They had a program, I want to call it a pilot program for veterans in rural Rancho. It was called Veterans and Family for Support Services in rural Rancho. And so the New Mexico Department of Veterans started this pilot program years ago, and I was recruited to be part of that program to help veterans, because as I started going into my academic path, I saw the connection of PTSD and susto. Susto is fright. It's a culture bound syndrome in our community, in the Mexicano Latino community. And so I saw how it connected with PTSD, the anxiety, the depression, and the triggers. And so I really started to focus my curanderismo work, my medicine work around veterans. Not only as a veteran, but my first husband was a veteran. And I believe that my marriage ended because there was no knowledge and education around PTSD. He went to the first Gulf War and came back a mess. And so our marriage fell apart. Nobody talked about it. Nobody said anything about it. And then my second husband is a Vietnam veteran. And so I started to realize the connections of the first husband and the second husband, and my own issues as a veteran around PTSD and the connection. So I started to integrate a lot of the things that my grandmother taught me around teas and herbs and cleansings and working with sweat lodges and trying to release those demons that we carry. You know, we carry it on our skin, we carry it in our heart, on our mind, and even the way we speak. We all those PTSD symptoms around and susto comes out. We get triggered and we don't know what to do with them. And so I was lucky enough to be recruited for this pilot program. And then from there, I was recruited into the Federal Veterans Administration Hospital in Albuquerque, and to really use this medicine to help the Latino and the Native American veterans coming back. So the first thing that they would do when they come in, not only did they get a physical and a psychological evaluation, but they had a spiritual evaluation with me of where they were spiritually and how can we help them to be balanced with that.
Well, that's super important. And can you give us an example briefly on maybe how that would work after you give them that spiritual evaluation and how that would be used and integrated with the rest of the conventional care that they'd be getting?
So we had a team that we work with, of course, with every veteran. And so when somebody came to see me for an evaluation, we would talk about who are their people, ¿Quién es tu gente? You know, who's your people, who's your community, where do you go practice your spiritual practices and what, you know, because I would integrate in all kinds of faiths. And so we would discuss that. We would meditate. Meditation is big around what I do, especially with veterans, because when they come back, they feel like there's no connection, there's nothing grounding them. So one of the things is, you know, we sit down and we do this evaluation, of course, and we talk about it. But I never felt like I could sit on the computer and take their data. I was always talking to them eye to eye, heart to heart, you know. And then I will always have a little tea for them, so that they would have, the tea could have be anywhere from spearmint, which is yerba buena. And a lot of the Latinos, veterans connect to yerba buena spearmint because it's our abuelita's tea. That was the go-to tea, you know, every time we went to our grandmother's house. And they would be like, oh, I remember, you know, when my abuelita would do this, how can I get more of this? And I would tell them, you know, get up in the morning, instead of having coffee, you drink this. And they would start slowly to get grounded to their roots. Another thing would be just smudging. You know, you need to clear that energy. And so just take even if it's an incense stick, you know, use it around you and feel like you have that clearing. And they will remember going to church and smelling the incense, or being somewhere where they would have that type of incense and they would feel that clearing. One of the things that served me really well was essential oils. New Mexico went through a drought many years ago, and so I couldn't find a lot of fresh herbs. So I turned to oils. And so I would use 3 oils on the veterans that I saw. And mainly I worked with OEF and OIF veterans coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq. And the 3 oils that I saw worked a lot was rosemary. You know, so if you know romero in Spanish, rosemary is helping you to clear your mind, you know, to keep you focused. And so I would have them use a little drop around their third eye or the top of their head, where we all have that little spiral. And they could right away feel, you know, that they were just grounded. The second oil was lavender. Lavender is for releasing, so I had it to put it around their belly button, you know. So if anytime they felt like they had all this anger or grief and stuff, you know, put it on your core and you can feel it just releasing it back to Mother Earth.
So we have rosemary, we have lavender,
Mm-hmm.
and now the third one will wait upon the next break. Okay, so everybody listen to carefully, listen to our sponsors,
Be sure
and we'll
to
be
come
back.
back.
Come back, because now you'll find out what's the third important oil that CC has used very successfully with PTSD patients and veterans. And we're going to talk a little bit more also about different types of ceremonies, like what is Olympia and even Sweat Lodge and Temezcals and the differences between those two. So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
You're clear.
All right, everybody, here we're on Facebook Live again. Thank you all for listening. Great information. I think this is such an important thing to talk about, because we don't really hear about it. A lot of times we hear just about medicines and just about natural products, but we're talking about spiritual practices here. So we have a lot of cool things. We definitely want to give another shout out to Food as Medicine, our Food as Medicine group, which is coming up. August 5th through 11th. So go to sanjevani.net. You can join us with the wonderful people of Curacao, the Wellness Island. We also have a program in June.
We'll have a program in June around the summer solstice, June 21st to the 24th. Look us up. Come join us. You'll have fun. You'll learn a lot.
Awesome. Anything you want to say, Maureen?
No, I was just looking at Facebook Live, and there's a lot of people joining us from the
Yay.
Cuauhtli saying,
Yay.
"We love you, Maestra."
Yeah,
That's
wonderful,
awesome.
wonderful people. They, you know, one thing at Sanjevani, we have a nice little yoga room. Actually, it's not really little, but it's actually a big yoga room. And we have a variety of aspects of different cultural practices that we respect and we honor. And so this is a place where people can come. We offer it for use for other people to have our events. And so people come all the time from all around the world, and they join us here for our events. If you go to sanjevani.net, look at our events page, you can see what's coming up. Again, one thing in June. And again, we have a Food is Medicine retreat coming up in Curacao, August 5th through 11th.
So the upcoming event, what kind of things will we be doing?
So we will be connecting to our inner child, our inner fire around the summer solstice. The south direction is the summer solstice Mexica medicine wheel direction. So we'll be learning a lot about how to connect that and how to continue that fire out in the community.
That will be powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Always getting in touch with the inner child is very powerful.
Always powerful, yes.
Yeah. It's fun too, very lively.
A lot of laughter.
Yeah.
Laughter is medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Laughter is medicine.
Laughter is medicine.
Cheers too.
All right, 15 seconds, everybody. Thank you again for watching. And all the people worldwide, we have a list of listeners from every single country. We even had one from Azerbaijan.
Wow.
Oh,
we have all sorts of people
that's
listening to the show.
fantastic.
So
Nice.
just want to give a shout out to everyone there.
Yay.
That's going to pull this up and show.
Tune in to Take Back Your Health. To reach our program today, call 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or by email to radio@sanjevani.net. That's radio@sanjevani.net. Now, let's return to Take Back Your Health.
Welcome back. And now we were talking about two important essential oils, and the third is coming. But before we talk to CC about the third important oil, besides rosemary and lavender, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors. We like to look at evidence-based. We like to look at natural therapies. And one of them is that we like to thank, in what we use here in our practice, and we'll have a show specifically, is using organic, full-spectrum CBD. And so there's a shout out to Fivita. We use that product. It's the best natural CBD product out there. And we'll talk about CBD in further aspects of the show later on. We also want to give a shout out to our Glucan 300 product. And Glucan 300 is the strongest, most potent beta-glucan around there. Go to purebetaglucan.com and you can enter the promo code PI, P-A-I, and get a discount. I also want to let you know that we had a show on strengthening your immune system naturally with AJ Langan, and he's the owner and patent owner, scientist of the Glucan 300. And there's a fourth published study, just came out last week, he sent me, a comparison study comparing it to about 16 other products on the market, again, in vitro, in vivo studies showing that it did the best. So again, we always are on top of looking now. We have almost 90 products that we've compared it to in vitro and vivo. Again, purebetaglucan.com. Learn more about it, and they can read the studies. And finally, want to give a quick shout out to our final sponsor, which is Pure Black. Go to pureblack.com without an E, pureblack.com. It's a live Shilajit resin. We have a show on that. Go back and listen to the archives. All right, so now we're back with CC, and she was talking about PTSD and some of the essential oils, that she uses. One of them was rosemary.
Right.
Next one was lavender. And the third one is?
Well, the third one's already a connection to what I already talked about with the tea. So it's spearmint. And the reason I decided to use spearmint for PTSD is a lot of the veterans have a lot of anger. And when they are angry, they're able to cough up a lot of bile, either yellow or green. And so it affects their bile. And it affects their liver and their kidneys. And spearmint, the way I grew up, Yerba Buena from my abuelita, was it helps all those organs right there. It calms it down. And so by just putting the oil on there, it seems to affect internally the liver and the kidneys. So the rosemary for their mind, to kind of calm them down and focus and get grounded where they're at. So they don't have all those distorted tangents going around, right? And then the lavender to kind of release a little bit of the nightmares. They're anxious, they're vigilant, looking around, and then the spearmint to calm down that bile that's going on from the anger and not knowing how to be here and not feel guilty for being alive, and coming back okay.
Yeah, I think it's a very big problem because PTSD, people know about it, but we still don't have really good approaches to it, and it hasn't really fully been incorporated into the system of how to really address. I think everybody who serves has some kind of PTSD on some level,
I agree.
and now even know, like, even physicians can get PTSD just from their training now, right? There's a lot of physician suicides, and also every kind of job, but the military is very stressful, and you're on the battlefield, you're in these high stress situations, so it's not very easy to come back and incorporate. But these are simple things that I highly recommend that people seek out. Where would someone come, if they didn't live in New Mexico, for example, right? In Albuquerque, and they can come here in Sanjevani and meet you here. Where could you guide people to go to get this kind of healing, or maybe is there any kind of resources that you would know nationally that would be recognized for people to get some kind of?
Well, I'm lucky enough to know that a lot of the veteran hospitals across the United States, I know we hear the terrible stuff out there, but a lot of other VA's hospitals out there are starting to incorporate and integrate this type of spirituality medicine. They contract out with Native American medicine men to do the sweat lodges. They contract out with people like me to do subcontract with curanderismo. We're lucky in New Mexico that I believe it's Molina who does the Medicaid, who offers a stipend to curanderas to see people with PTSD.
Wonderful.
And so I wouldn't give up on the VAs yet.
Right.
There's a lot of vet centers, and there's a lot of my tribe, Cuauhtli members across the United States that I have guided and supported for them to learn these techniques that they could turn to. You have to look it up under my Facebook page, the Cuauhtli Cihuatl, and we can direct you to some of the medicine people from my community.
Wonderful. So for those people, you can go to her Facebook page, or you can go to our page. You can send us an email at wellness@Sanjevani or radio@sanjevani.net, and then we will forward that to her so she can get in contact.
And we have Maureen, who's part of our Cuauhtli. She offers her body work. She offers all the techniques that she knows, and she knows how to do this kind of work. So she's right here in Albuquerque at this clinic.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that.
Let's put her to work.
Yeah, put me to work, yeah. One of the most powerful things that I've seen during my training with the Cuauhtli is the Temezcal. And I remember that a lot of veterans were invited to come into the Temezcal. Can you talk a little bit about the Temezcal and how that works?
The Temezcal is the Mexica sweat loss. Temezcal means tema is heat or steam, and skal means house. So it's the house of heat or steam in the Mexica Nahuatl way. And so I had one in my home in Valencia County for 17 years, which was a long time ago. And it was one of the first Mexica made what do you want to call it, structure buildings. It was a permanent building. It wasn't made out of willow bark for a lodge. And so I was lucky enough to have a Mayan teacher come up from Mexico and help me build this. And so we built it with a lot of help from the community and a lot of help from students. 980 hand-built adobe bricks. It could fit 25 people. And so the way I used it for veterans or for the community with PTSD was we were honoring ourselves in the womb of Mother Earth. And so we will enter this structure, this sacred structure in the dark. And sometimes it will be all male or all female, or sometimes co-ed, depending on the needs of the community. But veterans would come in to just scream in there because we as veterans are taught to hold in our feelings. We're taught to be, forgive my language, chingones, tough, and not show our emotions. And, we're just there to be protect and serve our community. So a lot of times the veterans will come in and they're just so stoic and so filled and so hard, but they're ready to release and they don't have a safe place to do so. When they came in, we would work around the East for new beginnings. And so we would do a little meditation of breathing, catch our breath, remember to be here, honor yourself, give yourself permission for self-care. In the West direction, I would do a lot of the screaming. So I would say, think about that pain that you want to release. And so at the count of 3, we will all scream that out. The South direction, I usually sang a lullaby to honor their inner child that was feeling abandoned, not loved. And you would have people crying in there because they will remember their abuelitas and their abuelitos, their grandparents, who those are the ones that give us unconditional love, right? We have our parents, but there's a connection with grandparents. And then the North direction is spirit, honoring our ancestors. Find that connection with your ancestor. And so we would sing or drum. And so this would take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on the need. And at the end, when we come out of the womb of Mother Earth, we're rebirthed, we're reborn. We leave, I call it, we're leaving all the caca, all that stuff that we don't need anymore there in the womb. And we come out fresh and reborn for another beginning.
That's beautiful. It always was such a beautiful practice. I really, really enjoyed that part of it. And I love screaming. That was really important to let everything go and let Mother Earth take it back.
And
right.
That element of that rawness, the innocence, the darkness, the heat.
Yes.
I remember, there was certain herbs that you had in the fire pit. So there was certain smells and, just like incense and all that. And just in the camaraderie of just the energy that's in that space was quite unique. I think everybody, if they can sometime in their lifetime, although, it's a sacred thing, it should experience that kind of thing. Because, conventionally we don't have that. We might go to a church or a temple, a synagogue, a mosque, but this is different. It's a completely different. It's really grounding, and it's us on a very core level that unless you experience, it's very hard to explain.
It was very much like being in the womb, and we always had rose petals and beautiful herbs, rosemary, and it just felt like mother.
Well, it's all about connecting to the elements, the water, the fire, the earth, the wind. It's all that connection because we forget that. In New Mexico, we have this blustery winds, I have a hard time with the wind because I'm a fire woman, but my elders always tell me, stand in the wind, put your arms out and let the wind just cleanse you. We forget all the connections. We have them. We just forget to use them,
Right.
Beautiful. That's something I used to do as a child.
Nice.
When I was in California, we'd have the Santa Ana winds would come up. And we get the winds here too, but I remember I was such a tiny little thing and I would put my arms out and just let the wind just blow through me.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, I don't have a sweat lodge anymore. I just want to make that in case anybody's contacting me for that. I moved to a new location and I had to put her down back to Mother Earth. We took her down last summer, but we have a beautiful Cuauhtli prior member. Her name is Julie McGarren. I want to give a big shout out to her. She's building one in Bernalillo and she's opening it up to the community. It's going to be done the old-fashioned way. There's a few other sweat lodges in New Mexico, and you just need to kind of find your way and find the one that works for you.
Wonderful. So after this next break, we're going to get into more details about Indigenous healing and spiritual practices. Again, come back to June here. We have a wonderful retreat here with CC and company. And also, don't forget, we have a Food as Medicine retreat coming up August 5th through 11th. And we'll be right back after a short break from our sponsors.
Clear.
All right, everybody, we're on Facebook Live here talking about wonderful, cool things here with CC, Maureen, and I. And we're talking about Temezcal. She had the wonderful Temezcal. It was the nicest thing I've seen. It was really heartbreaking to hear when you had to take it down. Yeah. I was just like, so much love and energy goes into building something. It's like building a home from scratch and then removing that piece by piece. But things move, transition, right? That's always the change of the earth is happening as well. So growth and death is a part of life. But we're always moving on to new things.
Yeah, new opportunities are coming up, and another Temezcal is being built. So
Yes,
we
yes.
can
I'm
do it
looking
again.
forward to doing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things that you were talking about earlier was doing limpias when you were in Santa Fe.
I want to say that Olympia's on the.
We'll talk about
Okay.
it on
Yeah,
there
because I want
too.
people to
Yeah.
understand. They won't know what that is.
Yeah.
So that's important. Things like that.
Yeah.
Anything that you want to share to Facebook Live audience that's just unique?
Of the Limpias?
About anything.
Anything.
Anything. Well, I think I want to tag on what Maureen said. We do limpias. The Cuauhtli members do limpias, which are energetic cleansings. We just offered that in Santa Fe. We were overwhelmed by the response. 32 people showed up and did that. We don't charge for the ones that we do as groups. And so we also have a Cuauhtli main segment in Arizona and Phoenix run by Maestra Leeper, and so she's offering also a group Limpia event in May out there in Phoenix. So check that out. We're hoping to do one here in Sanjevani soon.
Awesome.
You are tuned in to Take Back Your Health. To reach our program today, call 1-866-472-5792. That's 1-866-472-5792. Or by email to radio@sanjevani.net. That's radio@sanjevani.net. Now, let's return to Take Back Your Health.
What a great show this has been. We're learning a lot and explaining here with CC, our special guest today, curandera, amongst a line of other wonderful healing practices. We were just talking about Temezcal, which is like a sweat lodge. And then we were talking about something called limpias. Go ahead and explain a little bit more to the listeners what a limpia is and any other kind of practices that you do on a daily basis or with many clients that it's common.
So limpias are energetic cleansings, or like cleansing the aura around us. A lot of it is done in the Mexican community, the Latino Hispanic community, but you might know it also as just aura cleansings. And so limpias commence with a plática, which is a heart-to-heart conversation with the person, whether there's something they want to release or something they want to receive, what's going on with them. So we use a bundle of herbs or even roses to gently sweep their body to remove energies that don't belong to them anymore. I don't believe there's such thing as bad, evil, negative energies. There's just energies that doesn't belong to us, and we carry them, and they need to just kind of dispel. But the herbs and the roses pick up those energies. They have that same DNA as we carry sometimes. And so they're sacrificing themselves by taking these energies away from us. The traditional way is also using an egg, fertilized egg. The brown eggs is what I call them. And the reason that we use the eggs, the way I was taught, was it's the largest living cell. And so instead of using anything else, we use that and rub all over. And so you'll feel that the egg when we start is very light. And at the end of we finish rubbing the body, it's very heavy. It has taken in, it has absorbed those energies that don't belong to us any longer. So the way I work when someone comes in is I greet him and say, how can I be of service to you today? And we have our plática. I'll use a little bit of oils. I like rosemary and lavender a lot. And so I'll put it wherever Creator guides me, whatever energy spots they need. I'll do the egg all over them, and then I'll use a bundle of herbs or roses. And then I'll smudge them with copal. Copal is a resin incense from Mexico, and we use a chalice that we burn it with, and we just put it all over them. But if you don't have that, just incense sticks or sweetgrass or sage. And then I'll do what is called agua florida, which is a perfumed blessed water, and I'll put it over them, because a lot of times people kind of go away. They have this trance where they're having their limpia, because they literally can feel those energies dispel and dissolve. And so the agua florida is kind of like waking them up to bring them back in there.
Wow.
And so I'll ask them, how do you feel? And they're all, most of the time it's like, wow, I feel so light, you know, I feel like all the burns and the heaviness have left me. So I try to teach them to do that at home, you know, so they don't have to be dependent. I don't think people should be dependent on medicine people. I think medicine people we're here to just guide and support you and teach you and remind you to remember your own medicine.
Right.
And we all have our own medicine ways.
You all have your own medicine ways.
So I wanted to ask you, when you're done with the egg or the roses, what do you do with that to dispel the negative energies or the energies that don't belong there, as you said?
So most of the time I have the client or the patient that I'm seeing to take it back with them and either throw it in the river or make a ceremony and bury it, or they can burn it. This last time in Santa Fe, we kept them all. And my assistant, Di Santiago Nava, and Denise Grego, and Tilo from Towels, we had them put them on top of this blanket, and then we took them to the river and had them let go in the river. Giving it back to Mother Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mother Earth can hold our pain. We forget that, you know.
Right. And I think the key is, you know, ceremony. A lot of people are missing ceremony. So this is important for everybody to understand, because not always just something that you're taking internally, but it's a practice, and having a ceremony, having a ritual, having a, you know, something. I think we've lost that. And so I really appreciate, you know, all these indigenous healings and practices, because they have that ritual in their lifestyle, in their ceremony. And we kind of lack that, you know, especially in Western medicine. There's no ceremony.
Right.
There's dispensing and prescribing, but there's no ceremony, and so it's really impressive. I do want to mention again, though, for people who are listening, if you are a veteran, you know, make sure that you can go to your VA, and maybe you can request these kind of services, because, as you said, the more you request, the more they're looking at how they can help you help yourself. And so these are things that the more that they hear, I think this will kind of open up the dialogue, because there is certain places you can say out here in Albuquerque that they're doing these things. So maybe other VAs that may not have that, maybe will contact these other VA systems and learn how they can, you know, expand.
The VA here, the VA in Albuquerque here has a sweat lodge. They have a new director who's very open to a lot of the traditional ways. A lot of the vet centers have employees who are case managers, social workers, who are medicine people. So
wonderful.
Don't give up on the Albuquerque VA.
Yes.
Excellent. So if someone would want to join the Cuauhtli, how could they do that? Who would they contact?
So I always get a lot of requests when I do workshops and ceremonies and this type of interviews for people who want to learn. I always say, you've heard me say many times, I'm retired. I'm not going to teach anymore. But I can't seem to turn people away, because the medicine is for everyone. La medicina es para todos, is what my grandmother always said. And I so believe in that big time. I don't charge for an apprenticeship. I do honor, somebody wants to honor me at the changing of the seasons with what I call upila for those teachings. So you can look up my Facebook page or contact Maureen here at Sanjevani, Cuauhtli Cihuatl. We have a email, KTO services altogether @gmail.com. What I ask first is your story. Send me your story. Tell me why you want to walk this path. Tell me why it's calling you, and tell me who you are. It's very important for me to know quién es tu gente, who are your people.
And go ahead. What was the website one more time? The email address?
The email address is KTO services altogether @gmail.com. As I was sitting here and listening to all, you know, because I can multitask, I was thinking, how many students have I had since I've been walking this path? And I would say it's over 5,000-6,000 people.
Wow. I had no idea.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of people that you've touched, and we really appreciate you coming today and spending the time with us and sharing this information, because I think for a lot of people, particularly outside of the United States, but also in the United States, but we have countries all around the world. We have countries from Dominican Republic, Mexico, Singapore, Thailand, Korea, Chile, Greece, Spain, Sweden, France, Russia, India, Canada, China, you know, Netherlands, Australia. This is something unique, because they always hear about indigenous cultures, but some of them, again, we're all growing up in modern cities. So I really appreciate you coming and sharing this, because I want to have an insight to people. There's wonderful cultures that are out there that that you need to explore, you need to support, you need to protect.
And all those, I'm sorry, and all those countries you mentioned have their own traditions.
Absolutely.
We just forget them. You know,
Right.
the Dominican Republic, the Greece, everybody. I have an adopted dad who was from Greek, and you know, I learned a lot of his traditions and ceremonies. We all have them. We just
Right.
need to find them.
Right.
Yeah.
So lastly, before we go today, thank you everybody for listening. Again, we want to give a shout out to CC and everybody at the Cuauhtli and all the people who do Indigenous healing worldwide. Thank you for keeping with your practice. And we also want everybody to join us in August 5th through 11th in Curacao. Go to sanjevani.net, SANJEVANA.net to find out more about the Food as Medicine Retreat. And finally, want to give another shout out to our sponsors again, 5ita.com for the best natural organic CBD, and purebetaglucan.com and pureblack.com. Once again, thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed this show today, and best of health.
So special to have you here, CC.
Thank you. All right, so we're able to speak now, everybody on Facebook Live. The show just finished. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
It's a great show. So now we have just an open time. So if you want to just talk to the community, talk to everybody on Facebook, things that were are not going to be on the recorded show, but anything you want to speak locally, this will be on Facebook forever.
Well, I wanted to say something. When I was going through cancer 2 years ago, I just was in really bad shape, and the Cuauhtli was there to help me. It was so wonderful. I'll never forget it. And coming home, it was really important for me to pick up my spiritual practice again and to be able to, talk to the directions and kind of release a lot of the emotions and bring back the spirituality that I had. It was very, very powerful for me. So I'm very grateful to have had that experience.
It was our honor to guide you, sister. We're just grateful that you're still here with us and doing the amazing work that you're doing. I think the main thing that I would like people to remember, if I may, is if you can rise in the morning and honor whatever your belief system is and say, I am ready to receive blank. What are you ready to receive? We forget that. We're so busy getting up and rushing around, drinking our coffee, going to Starbucks, blah, 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 blah. Take those few seconds and just, I'm ready to receive Creator. And then the last is when you come home and you're ready for the evening to just settle down, looking at the sunset. We have beautiful sunsets in New Mexico, I am ready to release this. We forget to release all that caca, and then we take it inside our home and we go to bed like that. And then we wonder why our head hurts, our back hurts, So if you can just rise and receive in the evening before you go to bed and release, I think that would help you immensely.
Beautiful advice. Absolutely. Beautiful practice.
Beautiful practice, because I know that we have a lot of inflammation, right?
Lots of inflammation.
We need to wash this inflammation out. And I think it's important because, again, most of us today, and I think, again, you're saying we live a hustle bustle life. We get up, we go, we're just go, 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 and then we crash at the end of the day. And we don't have any kind of ceremony. We don't have ritual, and we don't have community, and we don't have purpose. Right. I think that's lost. And so then disease manifests itself on so many psychosocial, spiritual levels. And I think getting back to that basic element of like, hey, there's people with us, there's people to help us, there's this wonderful planet that supports us. I think once we get back to that original understanding, everything flows better. Everything works better.
And to have a community that loves you and supports you, and to be able to get back in touch with your ancestors and who you are and what your practices are, that's so important.
And to have doctors like Dr. Pai, that we can work together, the spiritual
wonderfully
stuff,
together.
Yeah.
To work together, I am a big believer of your bisomet, Eric, I take that daily. So my inflammation releases.
Yeah. And I have patients that come to me and I say, and I show them, they go over the book and we go over things. And I said, part of your healing is your belief system, right? Your spiritual or your faith practices. And that is not separated from all the things from diet, lifestyle,
Right.
stress reduction. And I always tell people, from an integrated perspective, I don't have the ego of what we're using. We're outcome based. We need to show that the patient gets better. So whether it's a sweat lodge, whether it's a medicine man or medicine woman, whether it's a shaman, whether it's going to a church, to me, it doesn't matter, but they have to have a practice. If they don't have that practice, that's one part of the wheel that's not on the spoke, that's not going to make it roll very stable and in the right direction. So I always tell people, like, it's not the ownership, it's having something that you do and you practice is the key.
Exactly.
So I'd like to request that we do a closing prayer.
Sure.
Can we do that together?
Yeah, wonderful. Want to lead it?
I was gonna have Maureen do her curandera prayer.
Ah. Okay, let's see if I can remember.
All right. So Maureen, go ahead.
Desde tu morada, luz, cúbrenos. Desde tu conciencia, absoluto, háblanos. Desde tu morada, absoluto, muévenos. Desde tu magnanimidad universal, sustenta nuestra esperanza para que podamos abrevar la fuente de conocimiento y en compañía, conjuntamente con los guías de la tierra y con los guías de todas tradiciones espirituales de la tierra y con nosotros propios guías personales, demos los pasos necesarios para cumplir nuestra misión en la tierra. Ometeo.
Beautiful. Para que todos tengamos luz, paz, amor, conciencia y armonía. Ometeo.
Thank you, everybody on Facebook Live. Again, until next week, best of health.